Hello, David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience. Welcome back. Not a brand spanking new conversation. There's been comparisons to Mission Impossible, well, for the last 30 years since there's been Mission Impossibles to the James Bond films. And this seemed like an appropriate time the day after I've seen this movie, Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, the allegedly last film that Tom Cruise will be doing as Ethan Hunt in the Mission Impossible film series. And there's inevitable comparisons, right? I mean, they're both rollicking action films. There's a central character, Ethan Hunt. There's James Bond. There's supportive cast and a supportive group. You've got Moneypenny and Q and M, and with Bond, and you've got obviously all of Ethan Hunt's supportive group. You have gadgets in both sides of the movies. You've got emotional arcs. You've got stories, really good storytelling at the heart when it works incredibly well. And that's really the crux to this video is there a possibility, based on what we've seen in the Mission Impossible series, that there can be learnings. There can be moments that filmmakers, even moviegoers, but especially filmmakers, can learn from Mission Impossible and apply to the world of Bond, possibly as salve, as an ointment, if you will, to soothe the disconnects that sometimes we moviegoers have had with the James Bond films. Now, we've got to start with the very basic. If this is still a James Bond channel, I know I'm sort of dressed like Ethan Hunt doing a Mission Impossible mission, journey, operation, but my passion, my heart, my love is still with James Bond. And it's from that I often have these type of conversations, because I want James Bond to be the best version it can be. I want Bond 26. I want the next James Bond movie to be the best James Bond movie. And I think we have that hope with every James Bond movie that comes out, that this is going to be the pinnacle. This is going to be the new Goldfinger or the new Casino Royale. We have that type of a feeling. And I want to keep that going. And as I watched this movie, and especially had time to reflect, I thought, my goodness, there are different aspects of the Mission Impossible films that I wish Bond would consistently get right. They don't always get it wrong, but I wish they would consistently get it right. And I want to start with the big one, and that is story. So I went into this with a little bit of a preheat, because I had heard from others that the first hour of nearly a 3-hour film was exposition, was story, was talking about characters and character arcs and hearkening back to the other movies. But they didn't do it for the sake of just throwing Easter eggs. And the Bond films have been a little guilty of throwing Easter eggs, like finding a Vesper VHS in Spectre, or Die Another Day that was filled with Easter eggs. You know, they call it fan service. You know, having that gushy moment of a fan going, ooh, 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 you know, like the Leonardo DiCaprio, you know, gift meme right now. Ooh, ooh. Seeing something in the background going, ooh, I know where that's from. But the problem with the Bond films is that when they do have Easter eggs or fan service or those moments, they really don't serve the story. They don't pay it forward. In this film, even though the first hour I was warned, and I put it like that because I love the first hour of this film. I thought it was such a great setup. It was such a great homage to the other films. But the reason it was done well was they didn't just serve it up by going, look, there's a scene, or look, there's a character. Each one of those moments, those Easter egg moments, was woven together into the story of this film. Each character that they reintroduced or introduced or had a relationship with them was then introduced into the film in a very significant way. Without that character or without that plot point, the plot and the story would not have moved forward in this film. If you go back to Spectre, which, you know, this is like an Ethan Hunt outfit, but it's also kind of like a Spectre. In fact, this is a replica of the John Varvatos by Royal Filmwear, and it looks like an Ethan Hunt jacket. It's why I wore this with the blue t-shirt and the blue jeans. It's an Ethan Hunt outfit, but the reason I even wore this is because in Spectre, they serve up this whole Blofeld, Blofeld as Bond's stepbrother, without really paying it forward in a big way. He was jealous, and that's why he formed Spectre and all these evil things that happen. A little weak. That's an emotional need. And even though, listen, the best megalomaniacs in the Bond films have been in a little bit of crackpots, that's a crack too far. I mean, that's a fissure. That's a chasm, if you will. So I think that was weak, as opposed to in this film where they reintroduce, and I'm not going to spoil anything, all right, so this is spoiler free, but they reintroduce some characters and even some relationships that have really strong bearings on the film and factor into the way the plot moves and even twists in many cases. So I think that there's something to be learned there. If you're going to serve up these Easter eggs and moments in the story, then have it prove a point. And that's the bigger conversation around story and plot line. What I was worried about going into this film, well, this is going to be 3 hours of just looseness and dragginess. But what they did was, this wasn't an action-packed film. I'm just here to tell you. I don't think it's a spoiler, but there are action moments, of course, and they're dotted in appropriately. And there are big stunt scenes because this is a Tom Cruise vehicle, right? So he's going to do like bonker stunts. And they're impressive. But to me, they serve the purpose. Now, I'm going to say something a bit controversial, but I'm saying this out of love as a Bond fan. Sometimes the James Bond action is kind of like akin to porn. Where like it's an individual scene that doesn't really sit in amongst everything else. Great to look at, it's exciting, titillating even if I said titillating, if you will, but it doesn't really serve the purpose. It doesn't weave together well in a story-filling arc. It doesn't push the story along. It's a great set piece, it looks beautiful, it's a great location, great action, great moment in Bond films, some of my favorite ones, but I don't know if it serves the story. The action in this film, the reason that it's a very different Mission Impossible, and they pulled back the action is because they wanted to serve the story. So when there is an action moment, there's a wonderful payoff and it advances the story through. It doesn't say, now here's an action piece and we'll get back to the story after the action piece. And sometimes Bond does that. And so I think the filmmakers that are now in charge of Bond, the creative individuals that they have this weighty responsibility of the James Bond movies now, really can think about when they're storyboarding, when they're block and tackling in the writing room. I think that they can really think to me, okay, so there are 5 different action set pieces, but let's not build the action set pieces first and then build the story. Let's build the story and find the logical moments for when those action sets work. And I think by doing that, it is a better function of the way they've built really good stories in Mission Impossible. And listen, it's not that Bond hasn't done that. Bond has done that, just not consistently. I want a more consistent kind of approach with the James Bond movies. That's what this is all about. Wish this had popcorn. I could use a good snack right now. But that kind of moves us from good storytelling, which is very connected together, to what is satisfying. And just like this popcorn would be very satisfying right now, this movie was very satisfying. There were no loose ends. And I'm going to go back to No Time to Die because I'm standing right in front of it. In No Time to Die, there were some loose ends. There were things that didn't connect together or made people scratch their heads, or why was that served up in the beginning if it wasn't paid off in the end? Every moment of Final Reckoning, in fact, every moment in the previous Mission Impossible films were served up. The reason why Ethan Hunt is the way he is, why he may be the chosen one, so to speak, in saving the world time and time again. All of those are explored, but they have a finality to it, and it's extremely satisfying. Again, I promised I would stay away from spoiler alerts, but even the ending is very satisfying. It doesn't need an epic end or a final end to the hero by trying to create something impactful and important. The impact and the importance of the ending of this film is about the reckoning. It's the reconciliation of all these years of being Ethan Hunt and being this agent and doing the right thing, even going against orders, and how others around him, others in his hemisphere, were sort of caught up in that and realized in the end, even if they didn't approve it, they couldn't argue with the results. That's not like Bond. Bond has a lot of failures. If you take a look at even the Daniel Craig films, most of his missions were failures. And I'm not, look, again, this is like the third time I'm almost apologizing for what I'm saying, which is ridiculous because it's my channel. But I almost have to apologize in a way because it sounds like I'm berating Bond, that I'm whipping Bond. But when you come out of a great movie like this and you see what it could be, then it's like watching your child play a piano recital, and it's beautiful because it's your child, and they're playing, and they hit a wrong note. And it's like, oh, they hit a wrong note. Mea culpa. The child hit a wrong note. Why am I speaking in Italian? But they hit a wrong note. It's like clang. And you're like, oh, imagine if they hadn't hit that wrong note. That's how I feel about Bond. Love it like my child playing a recital, but they hit some wrong notes, clang, and you kind of wish they didn't. But you can't go backwards. So now I'm saying, hey, why don't we take some patterns from successful films that are doing it right? That's where the impetus of this is coming from. Now, let's move from storyline to characters. And of course, I'm going to talk about Ethan Hunt. I love the consistency that Tom Cruise has enacted in all of his Mission Impossible films. It's why it's hard for us to really think of a Mission Impossible series without him. I know that he's talked to Glenn Powell about being the next Ethan Hunt and the next continuation, the next arc, but he creates such a consistency in both the emotional moments and in the action moments, between anger. You feel like he is the passionate one. And that's the thing. I mean, you can't argue this. Tom Cruise is not just acting in these films. He's not. He is serving up his passion, and you feel it. You feel it when he does interviews. You feel it when he connects with the fans, when he creates experiences, when, popcorn buckets like this, he had some sort of decision-making hand in something badass like this. So I know that Tom Cruise is in it, and you feel that in the film. You don't feel this inconsistency of character or warbling, or from film to film, you don't feel like there's a wholesale difference between the characters. Maybe Mission Impossible #2. It don't get no love. I kind of do love that film. But the consistency of character, the passion that an actor can exude even through the silver screen and off screen, those are some things that are important to me. Like when they picked the next Bond, which who knows, maybe they have, I really do feel like I want them to pick somebody that is going to be passionate. I know that that's not the main thing to do. You want to pick a good actor. You want to pick somebody that can exude and really encompass themselves in the character of Bond, first and foremost, right? That can help the story along. But wouldn't it be nice, isn't there enough actors out there that you can get somebody that's as passionate? They don't need to do the stunts, because that is batshit crazy. Tom, what are you doing? You're trying to get killed. But I think that you can pick somebody that feels the character enough to be passionate about it. And even the characters like the bad guys in this. I mean, the bad guys in these films, they feel like bad guys, but they have a purpose. They have an arc. The storyline is told. And I'm sorry to say, the last few bad guys in the last few films, they're why. Their very purpose of being a bad guy, or what their own mission is weak. I mean, it goes back to storytelling a little bit, but I think it's weak in character. I mean, Safin. I know I've said it like, can you say beating a dead horse anymore? I don't think you can. I think PETA will rush upon your house and burn it down. I'm overdoing the Safin discussion, I know, but the way I feel about Safin right now is a system where I feel like we need to step back and take a look at how that character was paid off or not paid off in the film. Because I don't think it was paid off very well. I think that, especially in the second half of the film, you lost the why behind Safin. And even in the beginning, it was relatively weak. It's always around these emotions as opposed to these bigger world domination plans. And again, without giving spoilers, this is about the storyline of this, the detriment, right? The things that could happen if Ethan Hunt wasn't successful. is world destruction. I mean, it truly is world destruction. It's not these little tiny, like, oh, I was hurt, or, they poisoned my family. No, it's big. It's really big. I mean, it's like entity big, if you know what I mean. So it's those types of things that I desperately want to get back to. Now, it would be easy for me to talk about the main bad guys and Ethan Hunt, because those are the easy go-tos. But I got a lot of heart for the supportive characters. And the reason I have a lot of heart for the supportive characters in this film is this was one of the most emotionally charged Mission Impossible films I have ever seen, bar none. I mean, the way they served up the individual characters and the emotions that you felt for them. I'm going to make a confession. I don't like doing this, but I'm going to make a confession. There were 3 times, German 3. Haven't seen that in a while. There were 3 times where I felt welled up. This film made me verklempt. I felt Spielkes in the Nachas. No, Nachas is joy. But I did. I felt a lot of emotion and tinging up. And I'm like, I'm not crying, you're crying. And when I was sitting next to Danielle, I was thinking, like, is she feeling the same amount of emotion? But it was so wonderfully emotionally charged. You feel like you grew with these characters. But these characters didn't just have emotionally charged moments. They also had moments where they were there to do something. They weren't there to take away the spotlight of Ethan Hunt. They were there to support it and brighten the spotlight. They were there to tell the story and further them. So you felt like you were with them. You felt like you were part of them. You felt like, as an audience member, that you were on Team Impossible. You were on the IMF team. And that is an incredible movie-making trick. It's not even a trick. It's a methodology. It's a protocol. It's an approach that Tom Cruise and McHugh, the director, they understand. If you involve your audience, if you pull them into the movie, if you stop looking around at the exit sign or at your watch, and I never looked at my watch, 3-hour movie, never looked at my watch once. It's because they pull you in as an additional member of the support team. But in this movie, they gave them something to do. Why am I even bringing this up as a Bond fan? You know why I'm bringing this up as a Bond fan. I mean, I love the scenes with Moneypenny. I love the scenes with Q as far back as it goes. M, fantastic. Tanner, great. All these ancillary characters. I do. And I wouldn't go back and change them. No regrets. Okay? But I wish that they would factor into this story in a much better way, other than being someone that needs to be rescued, or a cute moment, or serving up a gadget. I just wish they would intertwine them a little bit better. Even the Q ones, all right? So, we've got gadgets in Mission Impossible. They really do or die a factor into the movie. And again, no spoilers, but there are several gadgets, there are several technology pieces in this film that without them, without these kind of pieces that you have to put together, these MacGuffins, not only would the story not be as compelling, Ethan Hunt wouldn't have been successful. Like, he had to get these. These weren't little nice-tos like, oh, it helped him escape and this and that. No, these were highly important factors. And I feel like sometimes we lose that in the Bond films. Like, sometimes the gadgets are there to pay off a small moment, but not a detrimental moment, not a moment that carries the larger plot of the film. And I want Q, for example, to be sort of larger than life with that. I want, if it's not him, then it's his technology paying it off in a very big way. And I feel like we get these small ways, which, by the way, are fun. I don't want to not deal with the fun factor. And Mission Impossible serves up the fun factor. The humor is not there where it stops the show. The humor is there either situationally or because it's a palate cleanser. And sometimes with Bond, you still get the quips. I still want those tropes. I don't want to walk away from that. But they can be factored into the movie pretty seamlessly. I think there's an opportunity for the filmmakers to do that. Because I want those fun moments, even with the what I call ancillary characters. I want fun moments throughout. Now, this has been misunderstood. Whenever I've said I want Bond to be fun, people are like, you don't want double-taking pigeons and frivolous and Roger Moore. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, I had fun in this film, but there were a lot of serious moments. I mean, dead serious moments. Again, larger than life, world-ending moments. But I was having fun throughout, and you could almost tell that The actors were having fun. Everybody was having a fun party. It was a party. It was a party in a movie theater. And that's why I was compelled to go to the movie theaters, because I knew that I was going to leave in a triumphant way. I know that I was going to have fun. And those are the things that Mission Impossible films deliver time and time again. Tom Cruise has said in interviews that his goal as a movie maker is to become part of the movie audience. And he wants to leave a movie air punching, just coming out into the open sky and going, yeah, and I could take on the world. And Bond hasn't always done that. Bond has sometimes gone art house. Bond has gone more somber. And this is not another No Time to Die conversation about how it was made to really create an emotion with Bond fans that I think was a little, I don't want to say underhanded, but misaligned. I think that if anybody at Eon thought that they were going to make this film and that people would leave exhilarated, I just can't imagine they did. I think they knew that they were going to create something different, and I think they wanted to do something for different sake, and good for them for taking experiments. It just didn't work with me. It worked with some people. Some people love No Time to Die, but it didn't work with me. That aspect especially didn't work with me. Killing off Bond didn't work with me. The lack of the triumphant nature of the whole film, really. I mean, multiple people dying. Felix dying, and Blofeld dying, and this person dying, and Bond dying, and just dying. All the Spectre agents dying. It was like the Godfather of Bond films. Here, in this film, you do have individuals. How do I get away from spoilers? Of course you have, I'll call them casualties, right? Casualties of war. But it's paid off in such a respectful way, even from a revisiting standpoint at the end of the film, that you feel like it's complete and it's done with a certain amount of respect and, if I haven't said it enough, storytelling usage. It serves the story so well. It's not just a death for death's sake and then we never revisit it. And I feel like, for example, with No Time to Die and a couple other Bond films, these things are served up in a way to have a reaction or to do something different, but it's not exactly serving the story purpose. So if I wrap this all together in a pastry shell and served it up like a delicious dessert, I would want the pastry shell to be the cohesiveness of story. And I think that there's something to be learned here. And I know that we've had, dare I say, the same writers of Bond for many years. And I can almost imagine, without too much of an imagination, that we will have different writers with Amazon. I don't think they're going to use the same writers. I don't think they're going to use the same, hardly anybody, that they used in the other James Bond films, because they want to make their own version. And this is to the storytellers out there that are making Bond, whether it's the writers or the producers or anybody that tells the lineage of this character, is to really come back and maybe not copy. Don't copy. I don't want Ethan Hunt. I want James Bond. I want the sophisticated secret agent. I want the assassin that is cool and calculating and dresses well. And I want all those tropes. I want the cars. I want the gadgets. I want all those things. But I want it to be in a playground that is put together in the best story, so it has room to run free and secure, and to make us Bond fans feel like the story itself is the cohesiveness. It's the glue that all these wonderful Bond tropes that we've grown up with are served, and will be served extremely well. And the movie will be successful, I can promise you. So there you have it. Just a little, maybe a comparison. It'd be hard-pressed not to say it's a comparison, but I think there are learnings. I observe lots of things in my world, not just me making mistakes and learning from them, but others and other things, and I try to learn from them. I think movie creators can learn from good movies. And this, I dare say, just a couple days after it premiered here in the United States, I have a feeling this is going to be a slightly successful movie, because people will talk about it, film goers will talk about it, and it gives us what we crave. Adventure, excitement, we all crave these things, but we want a good story to pay it off. Well, there you have it. Little discussion. Clearly I was excited about this film, so I wanted to talk to you about it. How do you feel? Have you seen the film? What do you think about the Mission Impossible series in general? Should it be compared to Bond? Am I being unfair? Let me know in the comments below. In the meantime, this has been David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience. I gotta go run. I gotta go run like Tom Cruise. Hands up, lots of motions. I'll talk to you later. Bye. Hi. Thanks for watching the Bond Experience. If you like what you saw, why don't you subscribe to the channel by clicking this button right here. We'll keep you up on everything new that's happening in the world of Bond. And speaking of something new, here's something new just for you because we know you so well. Talk to you soon.